Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I would like to call the meeting of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee to order. I will start with, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I believe Mrs. Geister has the flag for us. So, Narragansett Regional. Sorry. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
of America,
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for the record, just give me one moment and I'm just going to make sure I have everybody listed so I can read off our participants this evening. Okay, so for the school committee this evening, we have Mr. Marks, Mrs. Robichaud, Mrs. Matson, Mrs. Chartier, Mrs. Trifilo, Mrs. Kojal, and myself, Mrs. Hughes. Mr. Mason will hopefully be joining us shortly. We have Dr. Casavant, our superintendent, Emery Geister, the business manager, and as other people join, if anyone else does, we'll announce them when they join in. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded by Templeton Community TV. We are also on the local cable channels. So once again, I want to say thank you to TCTV for making that happen for us. Tonight, we really only have one agenda item, and that is to kick off our FY22 budget discussions. I know it seems kind of odd to kick off FY22 when the state itself doesn't even have an FY21 budget, but we did not want to delay since we do have control over our expenses. I know that Dr. Casavant and Ms. Geister have worked to put together some preliminary numbers that we can take a look at. So expense-wise, we can see where we are, and then we'll have to address revenue and proceeds issues as we get more guidance. I did hear that the state, I believe maybe next week, was going to start taking up the FY22. I believe the governor passed his version of FY21 with some line item issues. They're trying to reconcile. And he did also, I believe, pass or put forth, not pass, he put forth the supplemental. So we'll see how that impacts us. But tonight we're going to focus on what we know, which is what our district has and what it needs and how we need to fund it. So with that, I do want to say in advance, we will not be going into executive session this evening. It was originally on the agenda. That will not happen. I just want to put that out there up front. And our next meeting will be on Wednesday. That will be our normal, regular school committee meeting. We will have a much more diverse range of topics and agenda items, and also take public comment at that point, if there is any. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Casavant and Anne-Marie and let you guys kind of run this meeting and let us know, where we are and what you've prepared for us. Oop, you're on mute, Chris.
There we go. So what I think is I'm going to share the screen here and see whatever happens. So I think we'll start off with the big picture. And Anne-Marie, if any of this, if I've got the wrong doc, just let me know, because screen share is not, as everyone knows, is not my friend. So at this point, so as we kind of limp through, I guess, FY20, we did this last year, quite frankly, and it worked. It was about finding what our expenses were. We can always control that. We always would know what our expenses could potentially be, or at least you can discuss them up front. And so we're really comparing FY20 and 21 here. Well, FY20, 21, and of course, what we have is FY22 down here. It's a little bit hard to see. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but of course, that's what we're talking about. So last year was a big year in terms of just budget. We had to make a lot of sacrifices, not only in terms of staffing, but we also closed Phillipston Elementary, and that was done for a lot of reasons. But quite frankly, one of the many reasons is that it was becoming difficult to, or if not impossible to fund And with declining enrollments in some areas and increase in others, it seemed a bit, warped as we were trying to figure out where to put kids. So as everyone knows, we made some drastic changes programmatically to the levels in which the schools were educating. And, in midst, actually, thankfully, we did start early because we had, right after that in March, at the end of March, or the middle of March, we obviously entered COVID-19, and that's really all we've been focusing on since then. So our primary goal for this FY22 year was quite honestly, is just level service. We last year, there were some additions and some subtractions. Last year, we worked very hard to get a school psychologist at the elementary level, which we did do that. It was in effect, I don't want to say that we swapped out positions, but certainly we had to make some tough decisions about what kind of staffing we had, or what programs we were offering, and what did we need. So, which is something that we go through every single year when it comes to the budget. But overall, we reduced we reduced a teacher at every grade level, K through 4. So in essence, going from 5, for example, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, et cetera. I think I missed kindergarten, sorry. We reduced the number of teachers to 4, but we took those students and we really just folded them into the existing classrooms that we had. So 5 into 4. That created quite a large class size that we really haven't had to deal with in terms of spacing issues or live, again, because we're in the middle of COVID and we have a certain amount of kids who are either cohort A or B. And of course we have hybrid. So that has minimized actually some of the issues that we may have come up with in terms of how many kids were we physically fitting into a classroom. That problem though does not go away. It just because of COVID, we didn't have people move out. I'll show you some of that information moving forward. So we still have that type of decision, or we still have that issue moving forward. In any event, as we go through kind of the account descriptions, or the 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, et cetera series, we could certainly Anne-Marie speak to the specifics of what every single one of the accounts really, gets into. But we really have, at or about, except for other school services, which we'll talk about, administration, which is salaries and whatnot, have stayed at or about what they were the year before. With one notable exception, and that, of course, is tuitions, and that's SPED tuition, special education tuitions. I believe, and again, we have this on another presentation, but we have far more students who are being educated in alternative settings, whether it be residential or collaboratives. Very recently, within, say, in the last couple of weeks, give or take, we were notified that 2 students needed to be educated in that manner, which somewhere in the area, a little north of $500,000 combined for the both students. So that is our our highest by far, 17% year over year, and that's not hard to do. It's actually quite easy to do given the pricing levels that some of these remotes are. Remotes that these residentials are at. So, Anne-Marie, is there something? So I certainly can toggle back and forth between the line item and of course just the budget subtotals. But first off, to the committee, do you have any questions? And of course, I would leave that if you have questions about what account is what. Certainly Anne-Marie can speak specifically to that.
Any questions from the committee at this point? Okay. No, I think we're good at the moment.
Okay.
If you want to continue.
Okay. So if we go to the online, the line by line, which I know that folks have, and certainly, I mean, it's well over a couple hundred lines deep. This, as we always have done, it's line by line item. It details every position, every pencil, every project, and to the far right. If I didn't go too far, sorry if I did. If there was anything specific that may be a little bit different or just out of the norm, we put, of course, the explanation in the comments section. Again, you'll see, a pretty hefty increase in, I believe this would probably be software, right, Anne-Marie? I don't want to talk. Yeah.
We can only see your subtotal page.
Still?
Yeah.
Well, I toggled over. Geez, I don't know why. That should have. You can't see the screen I'm seeing right now?
Apparently not.
Okay, hold on then. Please hold. I don't know why. Because you should. I'm going to share. Hold on.
I'm just going to make a note that Mr. Mason has joined the meeting, so I'll let the public know.
I'm going to tell you that it says you are screen sharing and I'm looking at the line item. Can you see the same thing?
We can see it now.
Okay. So, I think for obvious reasons, you'll see quite an increase to district computer software, for example, PandaDocs, Swiss, Zoom, TeachPoint, and Google. Those, we do not see us not needing these services next year for certain to this extent. We're very, very hopeful that we'll be in person, hopefully before the start of school, next year. But given that, though, we do need to hedge our bets that we could be in any form starting next year, and those programs really. It's what we live on, quite frankly, in terms of educating either through the cohort learning model or the hybrid. I said cohort or the full remote. Pardon me. So again, without going through every line, and I'm looking just for some kind of the big ticket items. Oops, there we go. That's the sheet that's why you couldn't see it. It ultimately, there is, okay, there we go. So the yellow, Anne-Marie, do you want to talk a little bit about the yellow? Because I think I just lost my screen again. So go ahead. I don't know why. We've had some trouble here today.
I just want to point out that like the middle column where it says level service, that is our elementary vice principal and some of the teachers that we have put the past few years into school choice. Those numbers are all in that level service number. And you can see to the right, I subtracted out the 5 teachers extra that we've had in school choice just to make it lower on the proposed side. But I didn't subtract the vice principal out because I know that we're trying to move some of those salary expenses and health insurance over to the general fund. So I thought if maybe we could try a goal of moving 1 a year or 2 a year. So that's why you don't see the principal being subtracted out after level service. And then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of that sheet, you'll see the health insurance. At the moment, our provider is telling us that they're probably not going to increase our rates just because of COVID. During 2020, there hasn't been a lot of people using health insurance because all of the electives have been canceled. So they're not anticipating much of an increase, that probably nothing. So I didn't add to that. And if we do need to have an increase, we could probably shift it to school choice because right now that number that's in front of you represents 7 months in the general fund, and the other in the school choice, which is higher. We were like 50-50 before, so we're moving in the right direction with the health insurance.
And I apologize, I'm getting a read error when I tried to pull up the draft. I know that you have it in front of you, so you might have to look on that document, just individually, with this update, the information that we sent out earlier. For some reason, it's giving me a read error. I don't know why, but it is. So are they highlighted in yellow too, Anne Marie, the two items that we were looking at earlier in terms of the
teachers and the principal are,
Yeah.
the health insurance is not.
Okay. So really, when we start talking about the budget and what we've done, there's really not, when I say, unlike probably a lot of other years, there's not an ask. We're just trying to honestly stay within the bounds of the budget, given that we don't really know. Although FY22, it's interesting, FY22 is almost a little more clear than FY21. Just for in this weird situation, we've had a lot of information back and forth in terms of some items were vetoed from the governor. I think the only, Margaret, you can correct me, but I think the only item that really pertained to education, I believe that he lowered the PPE or COVID relief to $75,000. I think that's what the one piece that,
Right. From what I'm hearing is it was 53 million and he brought it down to 75,000.
I mean, 70, yeah.
Right. But what he did do is he did include monies within the supplemental that he put forward. And rather than it be used, there was a formula that they wanted to use to distribute the monies. Apparently that was removed. And everything I'm seeing on the listservs, people are scratching their head because they're not really sure what or how that would be done. So there's not a lot of information. So hopefully more to come on that, and hopefully that gets through.
Yeah, so there's still more to come, quite a bit, but I think that in terms of everything else, when I say this, I mean, we can always, and we definitely need more money. We always need more money, right? But some of the bigger items that we were concerned about have at least passed muster at this point in time. And we don't know what the supplemental budget is. You're right. I don't know what the formula is. People are still trying to kind of figure that out. But I think he has an answer, if I understand it correctly. I believe he has an answer for PPE, and that's why he lowered it through the supplemental budget. So but we don't know what the answer is. At least I don't know what the answer is at this point in time. Is there a particular, if I can try to pull this up, is there a particular, or if you can look at your own copy, a line item or program or something that strikes you differently? Go ahead.
Could I just give a little update on E&D? We got our letter. I don't know if you guys get CC'd on it or not. I know that the selectmen do. Our E&D was certified at 480,000 and some change. That's down. The past couple years, it's been just over 600,000. We've used 500,000 of that 600 towards our budget. So there'll be some talk about that when we start talking revenue side, because there is a bit of a shortage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know that, because I know that is something that we've been discussing and we felt would happen. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad we have the number and we can start preparing for how are we going to make up not only our reduction in available E&D funds and potentially the Medicaid funds that we pledge, but also if there's a shortfall from the state, we're going to make that up. And that's huge concern, obviously, since the receipts drives what we'll be able to spend. So thank you for the update. I did have one question, or just to clarify, to make sure that what I remember. You took out under requests those 5 teachers. we also have another 6 teachers in school choice as of right now as well.
There's 4. It's our Unified Arts for the elementary. They have been in school choice for a long time.
Okay. So in total, then we have, if this was to stand the way it is, we have 9 teachers being paid out of school choice.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure that that is put out there and everyone's aware of that, because as we know, and I know we need to have a school choice discussion. I don't think we're prepared to do that since we're still waiting for some information. But the fact that our school choice numbers are going down as far as the number of school choice kids and the net that we have versus the expenses that we put into that against that account, that these teachers, if we ever run out of money, have to be funded or cut. And I can't see them being cut. I mean, that's also got to be part of our continuing discussions. Okay.
So another, I alluded to in the beginning about the actions that we took last year in order to, to meet in the middle, so to speak, at a number that that the towns and the district, of course, could agree upon, for lack of a better word. And what we were concerned about last year, prior to COVID, was the class sizes, and we had a lot of discussion around that. Not only years prior, but certainly last year, that it was obvious, at least to the committee and to those who attended the meetings, the 1/12 meetings, etc., that the community had spoken, in a sense, that although no one wanted really incredibly high class sizes, it was really there was really no other option. If we were to I guess if we're supposed to summarize what we all heard a couple of years ago. So and it is going back almost a couple of years ago, which is interesting. So hopefully I can share this and it'll work. But so what we did is can you see that before I get going? Okay. So what we did is we projected, which we've done every year, and it's really not a big secret how we've done this. We just simply took this year's existing, for example, kindergarten numbers, and we simply just graduated them to the first grade. Okay, we did that all the way up through. We just did the elementary at this point in time, because just to highlight, some of our concerns from last year. So it shouldn't surprise anyone that it hasn't gotten any better. We did not have massive move outs, people moving literally out of town to other, or as of right now, we'll have to get the report. The report comes at the end of the week, but the school choice preliminary report, we don't feel, and there's no evidence that a huge number of students school choiced out to other districts. We do know that close to, we'll round up, but close to 100 families decided to homeschool this year, which absolutely affected the elementary level. It affected all levels in terms of numbers. But in all of those numbers they've been subtracted out, so to speak, right? So what you're looking at right now is just a projection using what was what we had on, I believe it was Friday, and Anne Marie was nice enough to graduate everybody up one grade, just to kind of give you an idea. And so depending, and I know that if you don't have this, I know that we sent it out, but we'll post this, but we're still looking, depending on grades. The first grade is a little bit lower. Because we don't believe that we got all of our kindergartners, quite frankly, that we would normally or typically enroll. Much because of the COVID, and we think that, and we know that many of kindergarten homeschoolers, there are a lot of kindergarten level homeschoolers. But as you go through the grades, you progress to the grades. So grade 2 for FY22, right? We're looking at an average class size of 28, grade 3, 26, grade 4, 27, and pre-K is always, quite frankly, that's what we're projecting, but that number is pretty, it can be pretty fluid. And so what I think the community, and of course the school committee will need to grapple with, quite frankly, is that, again, it's the same question, just another year. Are these numbers, are you okay with these numbers? Are you satisfied? Are you content with this number of students per class or per grade, depending, I guess it doesn't really matter. They're high, even in any standard. If you remember back, folks were reminiscing that they had 30 or 35 kids in a class. And, I don't know if folks had that many, maybe. But I think that within the last, say, 10 years, and I would certainly defer to Anne Marie and folks who've been around, at least in the district, a little bit longer than I have, I don't think that you would see 28 and 29, quite frankly, as an average or in your class. You just not at the elementary level. That's just not, those are just not numbers that you really want to see. Again, that has nothing to do with if folks came back either from homeschool, right, come back into the elementary, or move-ins. And Anne Marie said something interesting. I think that we've had a move-in. Anne Marie, was it every week? You said something interesting today, and I just can't remember.
Yeah, like every time someone new moves in, I have to create busing and rearrange stops, and it feels like we've had at least one a month because it just hasn't stopped this year. It's just continuous. And I know over by where I live, there's like 3 new houses going, and we've already registered kids for 2 of those houses.
Right. So again, you don't know until you know. So that's the other part of it, is that we're certainly not, we're not trying to create this, panic or anything like that. This is just literally using this year's numbers, and all we simply did is graduate them 1 year. And I say to the community, I say to the committee, and I say it to everyone, if this is okay, if this is, the decision we have to make, then okay, then it is what it is. And so, but if these get up around 30, and again, a couple of these are, 2 or 3 kids away from, in terms of entering a grade, to being close to 29, 30 per class, you can, you certainly can see some issue either way. So that's in a nutshell. So what have I said here today? Well, first off, we did not increase the budget, although the budget increased, or I should say the spending increased. I don't dare go back, but something close to 3 or 4%. Much of that has to do with sped placement. And those things are completely and utterly out of our control 98% of the time. But 1 or 2 students who need this level of care residentially can, in fact, really skew a budget to that, to that effect. I mean, you could argue that if you subtracted out one of those, I don't have the total right in front of me, but I bet you would go down a percentage, right? Or if not more, in terms of the overall spending for the district. So that's quite a bit of where, our increase is coming. People always ask, well, what's the increase for staff? And it's 1%. Next year is a 1% increase for staff. So it's certainly not an issue of being overpaid or, a large percentage increase or cost of living. So that's so short of some relief based on, I'll pinpoint it with special education, for example. If if there's something were to happen, maybe increase of 240 or the 240 grant or some other avenues. I see this to be our expenses or the baseline of the expenses moving forward.
Yeah, interesting, Chris. I was just jotting some numbers down to kind of go to your point about, where our increase, when I look at these numbers, a 2.5% increase is right around $500,000 growing from
Okay, yeah.
Above and beyond that, which is what this number is about $280,000, which interestingly enough is about the number we're increasing in that tuition to others. And if we then go further into the numbers, the other larger category, the other school services, I'm sure
Right.
Anne Marie would have a chance to, she could pull out what transportation now do we have above and beyond to support these tuitions as well. So I think it's pretty clear that most of our increase is driven by that. Just the rough back of the envelope that I did, it really supports the fact that anything above and beyond what we would look for, like a 2.5% increase, that's what the drivers are.
Yeah, if I'm just looking at the line item budget for the special ed transportation, and the number in level services based on the students that we have going out right now, it's an increase of 180,000 over what we have budgeted for this year. So that's a 32% increase on that line alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you can see this. Hopefully you guys can see it. I tried to recreate this line item budget. I'm not sure. Can you guys see this? I'm not sure.
It's still enrollment.
It's still enrollment. Yeah. I don't know what it is. It just will not show it. But anyway, but you're right. It's 32 point something percent. I think that again, we provide the services that we need to provide. No one is, lamenting any child or children for that. This happens to every district in every town, it happens to every school. This is, salary and special education costs are, in fact, some of the biggest drivers to increase in their budget. So that's what we have this year so far. Again, we don't necessarily have all of our information with insurances and the such, but it'd be a different day, right? If you could say, boy, all we got to worry about is insurance. Insurance really doesn't concern me as much as, of course, the increase in sped costs, with transportation as well. Transportation has skyrocketed. It's it's been really, really difficult and to maintain. And we are working hard with other districts to see if we can marry up, kids who are going to the same place, all being, everything being normal and regular and post-COVID, all of that. I know that Matt is working very hard. As we now belong to
Keystone.
What's that? Keystone. I was going to think of I have their old name, but I couldn't remember their new name. But to try to offset some costs that we have there on the collaborative side and some of the services side.
I did have one question that came across the YouTube feed that I just want to bring up because I think Dr. Kazavant, you can probably answer. Mike Curry's watching us and he's got some nice comments here, but he did have a question on, let's see, it was something about the PPE, if the FEMA grant, although maybe he deleted that, just how we were able to utilize the money to help, because we were talking about short. I'm wondering if the CARE dollars is helping the PPP offset.
So, what we're hopeful, the answer to that is yes, right? So what we were able to do is as everyone knows, and honestly, Templeton came up huge because we were in trouble, quite frankly, given the monies that we had and needed to spend. And we reached out and took the FEMA MEMA monies, and we talked, and it was a great collaboration. Matter of fact, we were one of only 4 districts that I saw responded across the state. I don't know ultimately what the number was, but how many districts, how many towns were willing to, engage in a conversation with their districts using, in essence, those MEMA or FEMA monies. And so all of that being said, we're one of 4 that I saw on the list. We're hopeful that the spending window extends, because it's not a matter of the money, right? The money is there. It's the spending window. And of course, we've, it's always about PPE and those type of things. Again, those grants are only very specific. It has to be related to COVID relief. So of course, things like, a PPE, but I will say this, that, as much of a battering as the state has taken, especially Department of Ed. I mean, I do have to, because it's only fair, quite frankly, is that, we got a call really unsolicited that they had boxes and boxes of cloth masks that were available, and they opened them up to districts, and we were given a day and a time, and Anne Marie and Rick went down to Worcester, and we picked up pretty much one for every student, Anne Marie, roughly, give or take, or.
Yeah, we have, there's 500 in a case, and I think they sent us home with 6 cases, 3 cases of kids and 3 cases of adults.
Mm-hmm. And something that it didn't happen till this Friday, but this is kind of a new and hot off the press, which we're pretty excited about, actually. On one of the commissioners' calls last week, I heard that they were talking about air purifiers. And so I gave them a call just to say, hey, we didn't engage in that discussion because we didn't think at the time that we needed it. But I think that, given that working on our HVAC, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. So the state it's free. We are waiting on 74 or 75 air purifiers for the classrooms up here at the middle and high school for free. So that, again, someone's out there going to say, that's not free, it's tax dollars. Yep, it is. But it didn't have to come out of our budget. And so those are the type of, so I do have to say that, you have to pay attention, because they are offering these type of things, and we are always watching for grants, and we're watching for these freebies, I guess, for lack of a better word. And we're always game for that. And, but to answer the question, yes. And I think that we're okay now, but moving forward, we're still going to have to think about next year. We don't think that PPE is going to just go away, or the need is going to go away.
Thank you for answering that, Chris. Mike did say, thanks for answering the question, and agreed on the restrictive window. Indeed, was exactly what he said. Right. Having those expenses and getting the time frame involved to spend the monies, which I think for most communities was very challenging. And, I do want to say, and yes, thank you, Templeton, for allowing us to partner and collaborate with you on the spending of those monies, because I haven't heard of any more districts, I think, than you have. That's 4 regional school districts out of 100 and change that were able to work with their member communities, which is wonderful. So we truly appreciate that.
Yeah, it really made the difference. It really honestly made the difference in a lot of ways. And I could go on about, not everything got funded because people didn't, we posted for jobs, but nobody applied. Nobody can help that. But we worked with the police department. They added an extra SR. We had in the beginning, we had to find people. We had to do home visits. We had a lot of things to do. And, those monies went a long way, really in the care of our kids and our staff. And so, again, I know that I kind of, but that's a big deal that shouldn't be just kind of left off to the side. I did reach out to Senator Goby. She's been a great asset to our district. She's always taken care of us. And I did bring up the fact that, is there any word on extending the spending window? And she in fact said that there was discussion. Why not spend the money that has already been allocated? And from that point, I don't know where it may be, but we have done our due diligence in trying to wring every dime out of these programs in order to offset cost, to the people of Templeton and Phillipston.
Great. I'm going to throw it back to the school committee. I don't know if you want to stop sharing your screen.
Yep. That'd be great.
Thank you. And thank you for presenting those enrollment numbers, because I think it's really important that, we remind everybody of where we are, because this has not been a normal year, which has made things a little harder to feel what would have been in a normal year with those larger class sizes. So thank you for putting that together. I just want to go back to the committee. Any questions or comments so far on this first cut of trying to assess where we might be from an expense standpoint? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody furtively waving their hands or anything, so I'm going to take that as a no. I guess my next question will be is where do we want to go from here, and on what time frame? Because I know that we're waiting for some important things. Like we said, the school choice report will be out hopefully by the end of this week, but definitely in this month. I know we usually try to have our first budget hearings, I think, the February timeframe. So we usually tried, in normal circumstances, would try to have a tri-board meeting in the January timeframe, which we can still discuss and talk about, because we certainly could look to do an all boards meeting via Zoom and get on a call with both select boards if that makes sense logistically, because some of this is hard to do virtually, but we have to adapt. For the committee, though, where do you want to go from here? Do we want to plan on meeting after the first of the year and, come back and see what further information? Do we want to just leave it tentative as soon as we get, we know we have the information in hand, and Chris and Anne Marie say, yep, we're ready to dive a little deeper? What's the feeling of the committee? And also, what other information would you be looking for so that we can make sure that we have it available for us?
I think we should schedule a meeting, and if we don't need it, we can cancel it, but sometime in early January.
Okay. So if that's the case, I'm just going to throw out, originally when I had added just those tentative meetings, we had a date of January 6th as a potential meeting date. I was just doing the first and third Wednesday. We will have just come back from the break at that point. So I don't know if that's too soon right after. If I'll look to you, Anne Marie and Chris, if, directionally, if you think that's too quickly.
I don't think there's much to report on except the school choice number, but that's kind of small right now. I think we kind of need a few more numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So would we consider maybe doing, pushing that to the 13th? We could just put it on. If we don't need it and we're not ready, we certainly can cancel it. But at least then I think, Hank, to your point, we'll have something on the books. Because, if we start pushing out further than that, the following week, the 20th is our regular meeting. And then, we're at the end of the month already. So I know it's hard, and hopefully by then we'll have some more direction from the state with where they're going, because the governor's budget normally comes out, by the 30th, I think it is, he won't be up for election. I think with an election year, it goes to the 30th. Otherwise, maybe the 23rd, he gets an extra week, I think, but not this year. So do we want to do that? We'll put a meeting on the books tentatively. I'm just actually seeing that because I haven't looked, that week of the 13th, it looks like is booked on Wednesday. If we wanted to, it looks like Monday might be available on the 11th. If that would work for everybody, if you could mark that down, we'll put it in the books and we'll cancel it if not necessary. Would that work for everyone? Okay, so I'm going to put so Monday, January 11th, let me write this down, at 5:00 will be our next school committee meeting with just a focus on FY 22 budget. Will also leave us FY21 to discuss as well if need be, to see how that ties in with budget discussions at the state level and what that might mean. But we'll put that on the book for now. If things change and we're not ready, we will go ahead and cancel that, and then just do our regular meeting on the 20th, which is our regular meeting. So anybody else see anything that they need at this point? Any further questions or comments? I'm going to go back to the YouTube. Okay, I don't see anybody saying they have any further questions or comments. So rather than keep us here, because I know we like to hang out, if Anne Marie and Chris, if you have nothing else, I see shaking heads. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mrs. Kojal. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second by, I'll give it to Mrs. Trifilo. Okay, we'll do roll call. Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Mrs. Robichaud,
Yes.
Mrs. Mattson,
Yes.
Mrs. Chartier,
Yes.
Mrs. Trifilo,
Yes.
Mrs. Kojal,
Yes.
Mr. Mason,
Aye.
and Mrs. Hughes says yes. So I'd just like to thank everybody for coming this evening, and thank you, Anne Marie and Chris, for your work in putting all these numbers together. And we will see everybody on Wednesday evening at 5 o'clock for our regular monthly meeting. So thank you, everybody, and good night.